Good morning, students. Welcome back to online class on programming for problem solving course. In our previous session, we discussed the interfunction communication concept as well as passing arrays to functions concept, and we said these two are the important LAQs in your PPS subject. From the third unit, more number of times these two topics questions got repeated in your university exams, that is interfunction communication as well as the passing arrays to functions. So we left with two other concepts in your third unit, that is the first one, the library functions or standard library functions, and the other one is the basic algorithms. In that one we have to discuss searching and sorting techniques like the linear search, binary search, and also the bubble sort and selection sort techniques we need to discuss. So in today's session I will be covering the library, mathematical library functions, and in two more classes we are going to wind up this third unit, that is bubble sort. First we see the searching techniques, that is linear search and binary search. Then we discuss about the sorting techniques, bubble sort and selection sort, hopefully. So in our previous session we discussed interfunction communication. We said there are different ways in which the question can be, the university question paper question can be framed. They may ask you to write about interfunction communication directly, or they may ask you to write about passing parameters to functions. They may ask you to write about call by value, call by reference. All these types of questions, all these twisted question will give lead to this interfunction communication concept only. Whatever question in this way, if they ask, you need to write the interfunction communication concept only. And we said there are three ways in which two functions in C language are going to communicate. That is downward communication, upward communication, and bidirectional communication. So the upward communication, the downward communication, we said it is an example for call by value mechanism, and upward and bidirectional are the examples for call by reference mechanism. So after that we discussed how we can pass the arrays to functions. We said there are different ways in which we can pass the arrays to functions. The first way we said passing individual elements to functions, passing individual elements from an array to a function, and then we said we can pass the whole array as an argument to function. So this concept with programming examples we discussed. So in today's session we're going to discuss about the standard functions or library functions. Why the name standard functions means because the user or the programmer is not having the flexibility to edit these functions. So if we can't change, we maintain it as a standard, isn't it? In reality also, if you go to the some measurements, units for measurements, all the units, they have been standardized by some organizations, and we don't have the authority, or we don't have the privilege to change those units, isn't it? So those units, they are designed by the experts, they are designed by the organizations, and we follow them like a standard, isn't it? So here also in C language there are some functions which are developed by the experts, which are developed by the developers of C language. Okay, we call those functions as the standard functions or library functions. There is another name because the code for these standard functions is available inside the library files. Okay, whatever, when we are writing a C program, we include the header files at the top of every program. So the reason for including those header files at the top of every program is because these library files, they hold the definitions, they hold the code for all the standard library functions, all the standard functions. That's the reason we call these standard functions as library functions also, because they are holding the code. Okay, so hopefully you understood this difference, why the name standard functions or why the name standard library functions given to the predefined functions. Okay, then we have in C we have a rich collection of standard functions whose definitions have been written and ready to be used in our programs. So we simply use these functions as a tool. In our program, we use these standard library functions as a tool. We are not going to bother about who wrote that code and how the code is written and where the code is available. We simply use these standard library function like a tool. Okay, so to use these functions, we must include their declarations into our program. So including the declaration is nothing but including the header files. If you include the header file, that is nothing but we are including the declarations of those standard library functions into our program. The function declarations are generally found in header files. So that's the reason we need to include the header files at the top of our program. Okay, instead of adding each declaration, so because at the time of writing the program, we merely know, because many of the times we don't know how many standard library functions or how many predefined functions we're going to use in our program. So that's the reason, instead of including every individual standard library function declaration at the top, what we do generally we include the entire header file at the top. Okay, so instead of adding each declaration separately, a simple statement with header file can be included on top of the program. So individual declarations, adding individual declarations, it is a tedious job. It is a difficult job, and more of the time when you are writing the program, prior to the narration, I mean prior to writing the program, we merely know what library functions we're going to use inside the program. So that's the reason we skip of writing every individual declaration, rather we include the entire library file. Hopefully you understood. So already we discussed some of the library functions like your printf, your scanf, your getch, clr, scr. All these are examples for standard library functions only. Your string manipulation functions, all the string manipulation functions, they are also examples for standard library functions. So here in this discussion, we discuss another category of library functions. They are mathematical functions, or simply we call them as math functions. Math functions. Why? The reason for naming this category with math is because all the functions whatever we're going to discuss over here are related to the mathematical calculations. Okay, mathematical calculations are nothing but finding the absolute value, finding the power of a given number, power to sometimes, or finding the square root to sometimes. All these are mathematical functions only. That's the reason we call them as math functions. Another reason is because all the declarations of these mathematical library functions are included into math.h header file. Okay, math.h. In some compilers, you may find the definition under math.h header file, or in some compilers, you may find the definition into standard lib, standard library.h header file. So both these definitions you have to, both these library file names you have to remember. The first file name is math.h, which is nothing but the mathematical header file. Okay, mathematical header file which holds all the mathematical standard function declarations, definitions. And another one is standard library function, stdlib. So we need to remember both these in order to work with. Hopefully you understood. So the next thing, the categorization have been started. We discuss about the absolute, ceiling, floor, truncate, round, power, square root. Okay, all these functions we will discuss one by one. So what is the meaning of that function and how it will operate, what output you will see when you take that function into the program, all those things we need to discuss. And not only that, we also see the program example for each of these function category. Okay, so the absolute value function, okay, absolute value function, generally we use the function name over here is ABS of ABS. Depending upon the type on which you operate, we have different sets. Okay, different sets are different names to these absolute functions. If you are using only ABS, it will operate on integers. If you want to make them operate on floats, we have to use another function name. On double, another function name. Likewise, we discuss one by one all. Okay. So these functions will return the absolute value of a number. So what does it mean by absolute value? Absolute value in the sense a positive value, isn't it? An absolute value is nothing but a positive value irrespective of the sign of the number. Even if you take a negative number absolute value, you will get a positive value only. And if you take the absolute value of a positive number, you will get a positive value only. That means irrespective or regardless of the sign of its sign of the number, okay, regardless of the sign of the number, you will always get a positive value. Okay, we have 3 integer and 3 floating point functions, 3 integer functions and 3 floating point functions under this absolute functions, absolute value functions, to find out the absolute values. Okay, the integer functions, if you see, the integer functions are ABS, okay, then we have LABS, that is nothing but long integer absolute function, and LLABS, that is nothing but long integer absolute function. This is ABS is for integer, LABS is for long integer, and LLABS is for long integer. Okay, so we see the syntax of these three. So ABS will take the parameter as integer and return the parameter as integer. ABS for integers, both input and output. As you can see over here, it is taking the input as an integer value and it is returning the output as an integer value, ABS. Then long integer, okay, long integer is taking the long integer as input and returning the output is also a long integer. So here if you give the negative integer as input, you will get the positive integer. You will give the negative positive integer as input, in that case also you will get the positive integer only. Okay, always you will get the output as a positive value. Hopefully you understand the use of an absolute value in your mathematics. Okay, so here also LLABS, long integer. So it will take the long integer value as parameter and return the long integer value as output. So I mean 3 floating point numbers also we have, 3 floating point absolute functions also we have, which will operate on the floating point values. So to operate a number on a double, okay, F absolute. So if you use the function name F absolute, it will operate on double. You can see the input is double and it will give the output also double. And if you make that same function to operate on a float value, simply add F after the number, after the function name. FABS F, FABS F, F absolute F, floating point absolute on float. Okay, floating point by default it is on double. So if you want to make it on float, just suffix an F after the function name. So now this FABS F will operate on floating point numbers. Then float values. Then finally the long double also we have, long double type also we have. To make this absolute function so that it will operate on long double, you have to take FABS L. FABS L will operate on long double. Okay, long double value. Hope you understand this. Okay, quickly we need to demonstrate all these 3 functions into our IDE. So I'm going to my IDE and I'm opening a file. I will put the and we need to add math.h also, because we are using the mathematical library functions. Okay, so now I need to check how the integral values will operate. Okay, integral values will operate. To check that one, what I have to do, yes, I will take the integer result. Okay, result equals to call the absolute function. Absolute, I'm giving the negative value 23.46. okay, so I'm calculating the absolute value of minus 23.4. No, not 46. We can't give because it is an integer. So minus 23. Okay, we are calculating an absolute value of an integer. So now print it, printf. Okay, percentile d, percentile d, and before that you put absolute value, or just put the result. Result equals to percentile d, and you put the comma and print the result. Okay, like this. Now save this program, give the name math functions.c, compile the program, compilation successful, and as you can see, you will get the positive value. We supplied the negative value to the function and it is returning the positive value. So we got the result as positive 23, not the negative 23, rather we got the positive 23 as an output. The reason, absolute function will return the positive value. So we try another one, that is the maximum. This is the least one. We will try the maximum type, that is long integer. Long integer. If it is long integer, what function we must use? That is LLABS, I guess, isn't it? LLABS. So use that one. Long absolute of some big value you can give. 23,400. Okay, 2,34,500 is the number. I'm giving a big number and I'm calculating its absolute value. So here, when you are printing for long integer, we have to put the conversion code LD. The conversion code LD we need to put. So now go to execute, compile, compilation. It is giving some error. Okay, so maybe it is not there in math, so I will put stdlib, standard library. We will check. Yes, it is there, because absolute function is there in math.h, but when it comes to long absolute, it is not there in math.h. It is there in standard library.h. That's the reason we got the error, and I have corrected that one by including the standard library.h. So now compile it, compilation successful, as you can see. Then run it and you will get that value 2,34,500 as a positive value. Okay, in this way we can find out, we can calculate the so yeah, there was an issue with my mic. Okay, so in this way we can calculate the absolute value of a long integer. So the absolute function, the function name LLABS we need to use to calculate the long absolute value. Okay, so yes, for floating point numbers, so for normal double, what function? FABS. FABS I need to use normal double, some 234.345. This is for normal double. Okay, now compile incompatible type. So normal double type, maybe it is available in math.h. Save it, We got the output. So run it. See here, okay, here not percentile LD. For printing double, we have to use percentile LF. Okay, percentile LF. Compilation successful, and you run. Yes, you can see minus 234.345 we have given, and we got plus 234.345. Like this, you can calculate the absolute value of floating point numbers with its respective function name. So for calculating double, it is FABS. For calculating float, FABS-F, and for calculating long double, FABS-L is the function name. Okay, hopefully you understood all these things. So quickly we go to the next type of function, that is the ceiling function. Ceiling function, see here, whenever you go to a supermarket or whenever you go to a vegetable market and you are buying some what we call items or some groceries over there, then after purchasing all the items at the billing counter, they will give you the final figure of how much amount you have to pay at the billing counter, isn't it? So generally what will happen at the billing counter, you will get the values like 250 rupees and some 50 paise, or 250 rupees or 75 paise likewise. So nowadays what will happen, we don't have the coins so that we can pay that 0.50 and 0.75, 0.25 like that type of amount. So what they will do at the supermarket or at the vegetable market billing counter means they will round figure that value, isn't it? They will give the nearest equivalent value. Instead of 250.75, what they will do, they will charge you like 251 rupees, isn't it? The round figure value they will charge. So yes, this ceiling function, floor function, truncate function, round function, all these functions are helpful in calculating the nearest possible value or nearest whole number or nearest integral value, we can say, of a given floating point value. So always the input to these functions will be a floating point value and the output will be the integral value, the whole number value. Okay, so how it will calculate the whole number, in the sense by simply rounding the value. Whatever value you supplied, it will simply give the round figure of that value. So we understand it in terms of round figure, so I am using the term over here. So ceiling value is something, so if you have the number sequence, okay, if you have the number sequence like this, okay, 0 in the middle and all positive numbers at the right hand side and all the negative numbers at the left hand side of the 0, if you have the number sequence like this, so ceiling function, what it will do means, it will give the nearest integral value always in the right hand side. Okay, always in the right hand side. So suppose if you are calculating the ceiling value of 1.1, let us assume you are calculating the ceiling value of 1.1, which is the nearest whole number in the right hand direction to 1.1. We are not moving in the left hand direction, we are moving in the right hand direction. In this way we are not moving, we are moving in this way. So if you move in this way, the nearest possible whole number or the nearest possible integral number is 2.0 or 2. So if you supply ceil of 1.1, okay, ceil value of 1.1, you will get 2. Same thing if you try to find out the ceil value of minus 1.9, minus 1.9, it will come somewhere over here in between 1.0 to 2.0. Over here it will come. So if it is coming over here, we have to move in the right hand side direction only. We should not move in the left hand side direction, isn't it? This is not allowed. We have to move in this direction. So if you are moving in this direction, the nearest possible integral value is minus 1.0. So you will get the output as minus 1.0. Hope you understood this one. So we have the ceiling functions only to the floating points, because for integrals there is nothing to round, isn't it? There is nothing to calculate the integral value, because already the integral values are in integrals only. Already the integral values are whole numbers, so there is nothing to calculate the nearest value. So we have ceiling functions only to the floating point values. So for calculating the ceiling value of a double, we use ceil function. Okay, normal ceil without any prefix and postfix. So to calculate the ceiling value of a float, ceil f, and to calculate the ceiling value of a long double, we use ceil l. Okay, we do for double. Okay, how we do, I mean, what values we get, we will see. We do for double. We do the demonstration for double. Okay, go to your program. And now what we are doing, put this math.h and try. If it is not coming, we will go for standard library. Double result equals to, we will calculate ceil. Okay, because for double, no need of any prefix or suffix, directly ceil. So now we are calculating the ceiling value of minus 234.345. Okay, so what is the nearest possible value on the number line? In the sense, we have to move in the right hand side direction. So it is a negative value, so it will come in the left hand side, and if you move in the right hand side, you will get 233. So the nearest possible ceil value to this minus 234.345 is 233. Just go and check. Yes, we got the compilation, and if you run, you will get minus 234, and this what we call the precisions got ignored. Okay, minus 234 is the nearest possible. Okay, the next thing, check for minus 1.92. Okay, minus 1.92. What is the nearest possible value? Minus 1. If you move in the right hand side direction, the nearest possible value is minus 2. And if you move, if you move in the left hand direction, the nearest possible value is minus 2. And if you move in right hand direction, the nearest possible value is minus 1. Okay, so always ceil function will take the nearest possible value, nearest possible whole number in the right hand direction. So you will get minus 1 as output. Quickly check that one. Compilation is successful, and if you see the output, we got minus 1 as we discussed. Okay, this is about the ceil value. Always it will look for the nearest possible whole number in the right hand direction. We have the floor value. It is quite opposite to the ceil value. It is always look for the nearest possible whole number in the left hand direction. You can see that arrows. You can see these pointing arrows. In which direction they are pointing? They are pointing in the left hand direction. So floor function is exactly opposite to the ceil function. Where ceil function is giving the nearest possible values in the right hand direction, the floor function will give the nearest possible value in the left hand direction. Remember this one. And the possible floor functions are floor for double type of values, floor f for float values, floor L for long double values. So we try these floor function only for double values. Okay, double we have already declared the result. So instead of ceil, now you take floor. Okay, if you take floor, what it will do? It will find out the nearest possible integral value in the left hand direction. So minus 1.92, the left hand side value is minus 2. The nearest possible whole number or nearest possible integral value is minus 1.92. Okay, simply compile it, compilation successful, and run it, and you can see minus 2 we got as we discussed. So nearest possible whole number in the left hand direction is minus 2. We got it. Okay, so this is about floor functions. Then we have the truncate functions. So truncate functions, it is somewhat different than your floor and your what we call ceil. This is somewhat different. It is always a look for the nearest possible integral towards the zero direction. Okay, towards the zero direction. Okay, so here if you see the number sequence, the floor function is taking the nearest possible integral in left hand direction, and ceil function is taking the nearest possible integral in right hand direction, but the truncate function will always go for in the zero direction, so for positive numbers it is same like your floor function for positive number, and for negative number it is same like your ceil function. Hopefully you understood. It is always look for number nearest possible integral in the direction of 0, not in right hand direction, not in left hand direction, in the direction of 0. Always look for the nearest possible integral in the direction of 0. Okay, so quickly we check this truncate number also, truncate function also. So to apply this truncate, we have three possible truncate functions, one for double, one for float, and one for long double. For double it is normal trunc, TRUNC, and for float trunc F, and for long double it is trunc L. Okay, remember this one. So quickly we go and we see how it will work for double. So same minus 1.92 I will take, and I am applying trunc because it is a double value, so I am applying trunc. So trunc minus 1.92. So minus 1.92, it is a negative number. So the nearest possible integral in the direction of 0 is minus 1. For minus 1.92, in the direction of 0, the nearest possible integral is minus 1. So save it, compile it. So according to our discussion, we should get the result as minus 1. That we are getting, you can see, minus 1.60 we are getting. Okay, then close it. We have another function after this, that is the round function. So neither in left hand direction, nor in right hand direction, nor in the direction of 0, it will always look for the nearest possible integral. Okay, not in any direction, it will always look for the nearest possible integral. Suppose if you have like this, the number sequence, if you, let us assume if you have like this, so we have the number sequence, somewhere in the middle we have the 0, and here we have 1, and here we have 2. So let us assume here we have 1.5. Let us assume I am calculating the round value for 1.72. Okay, 1.72 will come after 1.5. So it will be somewhere here. 1.72 will come over here. So which one is near? Whether 1 is near or 2 is near? 2 is near. So it will go for 2. 1.72 will become 2. Okay. And if you take any value like 1.14, let us assume we are calculating the round value of 1.14. Then how it will be? 1.14 will stand before this 1.5. So somewhere here it will come 1.14. So now to this 1.14, which one is near? 1 is near or 2 is near? 1 is near. So the value will become 1. So round of 1.72 will become 2, and round of 1.14 will become 1. Like this you have to remember. So quickly we demonstrate this. So the function name round for double. So take minus 1.92. So which one is near to minus 1.92? 2 is near, isn't it? So round of minus 1.92 will become minus 2. So compile, successful, and then run. You got minus 2 as you can see. Okay. So change the value. You take minus 1.14. So now which one is near? Minus 1 is near. Okay. Minus 2 is far away. Minus 1 is near. So the nearest possible integral is minus 1. So minus 1 you will get, as you can see, minus 1 we got. For minus 1.14, we got the nearest possible integral value as minus 1. Hopefully you understood. So then we have the power function. Okay. Power function, what it will do? It will calculate the power, okay, to the number of times. Okay. Suppose if you take here power of xy, power of xy. So what will happen? You will get x to the power y. Okay, x to the power y, the equivalent value on the output screen. So if I put power of 2, 3. So what will be the value over here? 2, 3. So here 2 power 3, that is 8. So like this you will get. So for different types of values, you can apply different forms of this power function. The first form will apply on double. The second form, power f, will be applied on floating point numbers, and power lf will be applied on long double numbers. Okay, so power of 3.0 comma 4.0, take this example. So here 3 power 4, this is something 3.0 to the power 4.0, so it is 81. You will get the output like 81. So quickly we demonstrate this one over here. So instead of normal result, I will put PW because we are calculating the power now. So PW. So here we need to pass two values, that is 3.0 comma 4.0. 4.0. Two values we are passing, and if you see the power result, you will get, here we need to put PW because the result is stored in PW now, power variable now. Compile, what it is saying, too many arguments to round. No, not round. My function name is POW, power function. Go compile. Yes, successfully compiled. Run it. You can see we got 81. Okay, 3 power 4, that is 81 we got. Hopefully you understood. Okay. So this is about the power function. How it will operate, it is very easy because all these functions are not new to you. Of course, ceiling, floor, truncate are new, but absolute, round, power, square root, they are all very known to you because you are using these functions in mathematics also. Okay, the type of the syntax and the prototype of these functions, ultimately you have to remember, you have to read and you have to remember, but when it comes to the usage, it is already there. Okay, it is already there in your mind. I mean, it is because you people are quite familiar with these things, so no need to bother about these things. Okay, power functions. After that, square root functions we have. Square root, it is very simple. Under root value it will give, and always whenever you are calculating the under root value, try to give a positive value only, because positive values or the negative values will lead to the real numbers, isn't it? Will lead to the real numbers, sorry, not imaginary numbers. Negative values under the under root will lead to the imaginary numbers that we don't want. Okay, generally it will give, the power function will give, if you take a negative value to the as an input to this square root function, you will get an error. And whenever you are calculating the square root value, if it is a double, you use a direct SQRT, and if it is a float, SQRTF, and if it is a long double, you use SQRTLF. Okay, so square root of 25 is 5.0. The example also I have given, and we will demonstrate this one in the programming. See how small, for this all these library functions, we have hardly written 3 lines of code for each of the function, so they are very easy to remember. Okay, now we are calculating square root. Okay, so I will give the variable name as SQ, square root. Okay, here the return value SQ, and the function name is SQRT, square root for double. So if I put square root of 81, so I should get the result as what? Result as here. Square root as 9, because 81 square root is 9 SQ. Save the program, compile it, compilation successful as you can see, then run the program and you got the output as now 9. Square root equals to 9 because we supplied 81, so we got the square root as 9. Hopefully you understood this thing. Okay, so with this discussion we are concluding all the mathematical library functions, like we discussed about absolute functions. Absolute functions, we have 2 different categories. For integers, a separate category. For floating point, a separate category. Okay, then we discussed ceiling functions. Calculating the ceiling value only to the floating point numbers, it is possible. So we have different set of functions for floating point numbers, and next we discussed about the floor value. Same thing, floor values we can calculate only for the floating point numbers. We have a set of functions for to do so. Then we have the truncate value. Truncate value also we can do only to the floating point numbers. For that we have a set of functions. Then we discussed round functions, okay, for round also for floating point. Then we discussed power function. Then finally the square root functions. So all these mathematical library functions, the functionality, the usage, you have to remember with the example programs, because they will not give this question in your LAQs, but there is a possibility or there is a chance that they will give this question in your SAQs or as a bit in your LAQs, okay, as a small bit in your LAQs. So definitely we should not leave these concept also. We should prepare for these concept also. Hope you will do that. Okay. And in one more or two more classes, I will wind up the third unit. Then we will get into the fourth unit. And believe me, your fourth unit, it will hardly take like 5 to 6 classes. 3 classes for structures, 2 classes for recursion. Okay. With that, we conclude the fourth unit also, and finally we'll go with the fifth unit. The pointer concept, it will take around 3 to 4 classes to complete the pointers. And files, we need to discuss only the introductory part in files. So the files also will take like 3 to 4 classes. Then we do the revision. How we do means, once again I will not going to I'm not going to deliver all the lectures. Rather, we take the previous year university question papers and we solve one by one. Okay, step by step we move, and step by step we solve all the previous university question papers. And also on my blog we have the important questions document that also we try to solve. Thank you very much, students.